So you're looking to get an iPhone on a budget. Nothing fancy, you don't need all of the bells and whistles. Well, this is the new iPhone 16e, Apple's new stripped back entry level phone. Except this starts at 600 quid, almost 200 more than the iPhone SE that it replaces, which does raise a few questions. Who is this not so budget iPhone for? How does it compare to the base 16? And is it really worth this new unexpectedly high price point? Let's find out. Now, Apple is calling this the iPhone 16e, which, yeah, on the inside it does share a lot of tech and features from the latest generation. But on the outside, it is essentially an iPhone 14 shell with the chip and brains of a 16. Like the SE line that this replaces, Apple has taken an older design that they've already invested in for the R&D, and they've stuck some new guts inside to help keep the costs down. That means we get this aluminium chassis with these flat mat rails, one single camera on the back, which we will get to, an all front display now. There is no more forehead or chin, top and bottom. Farewell to Touch ID and the home button. The SE was the last iPhone still holding onto it. With the 16e, we get a notch with Face ID. We have much thinner bezels around the outside, not as thin as the 16, but I don't think that that's going to bother too many people that are looking to get this phone. The SE was also the last Apple device that shipped with the Lightning connector. The 16e now completes the iPhone transition to USB-C, which just makes everything so much simpler, as pretty much all tech is using USB-C now, so you can just carry one cable for everything. This doesn't get the camera control from the 16 for quickly launching camera apps or taking photos and adjusting settings, but they have replaced the mute switch now with the action button, and that is pretty much the only noticeable change from the 14 body, aside from that single rear camera. The button still works as a mute toggle, but you can go in and customize it with all sorts of actions, from opening the camera, setting a focus mode, starting Shazam, or running any of your own custom shortcuts to do pretty much whatever you want. So that is a nice addition. The 16e has literally the exact same dimensions as the 14, and it's pretty much the same weight as well, at 167 grams. Now, I handed this to my dad, who currently has the 2nd gen SE, and he did comment on it feeling heavier to him, and he did notice that overall just bigger form factor and the larger display. This now has a 6.1 inch display, up from 4.7 on the SE, fitting a lot more content on screen. It's OLED now for much crispier and contrasty blacks. It looks gorgeous for watching HDR content and displaying your photos. It's easier on the eyes in lower light, as blacks are truly black now. And it looks great outdoors, although it is not as bright or vibrant as the 16, but I've not had any problems seeing any content on screen here in always cloudy England. And yes, this is a 60Hz display. There was no way that Apple was going to give this a higher refresh rate than the 16. It comes in only one size though. There is no Plus version, at least at this time. But to be honest, I kind of want to see Apple try again with the Mini and make a smaller version of this. I did do a couple of retrospective tech videos recently looking at the iPhone 4 and the 5S, and man, I do just love those designs. And a mini version of the 16e would really capture some of that like iconic feel of those phones. And I know they tried it before, but even my dad said that he would want a smaller version of this too, and I'm sure that he's not on his own out there, so let me know down in the comments. There are only two colours to choose from. You get black or white. There's no product red version. My dad called the black and white boring. He loves his red iPhone, but I guess in an effort to further keep costs down, they've stuck with just the two colour SKUs. And if you want a colour, Apple's answer is go and buy case. It now comes with 128 gigs of base storage, which is double that of the SE, so that is great to see, with options for 256 or 512 gigs as well. And it does come with all of those safety features that we do see in the headlines, helping people when they get stuck or get in trouble, with emergency SOS via satellite and car crash detection, which is all new for anyone coming from an SE. Also, on the inside, we get the A18 chip, but it's not the exact same version as we find in the iPhone 16. While the 16 Pro, 16 and the 16e all get a chip with a 6-core CPU, you get one less GPU core as you move down that ladder from 6 to 5 down to 4 cores with the 16e. Most likely because it's a binned chip. In the intricate process of chip fabrication. There's sometimes a core that just doesn't work as it should. So instead of chucking the whole thing out, that faulty core gets disabled so Apple can use the chip in a lower model phone, which is already standard. You're never going to get a 100% yield rate when you are making chips. It's just another way of cutting costs by using the same chip from the current generation, but just disabling bad or faulty cores instead of designing a whole new chip specifically for this phone. For daily tasks like browsing, texting, just moving around the phone, this honestly feels as fast as my 16 Pro Max, but even when I go and boot up like a graphically intensive game, it still keeps up with the Pro Max despite having 2 fewer GPU cores. Unless you're going to be doing like a lot of sustained heavy workloads like editing or exporting big video projects, which I don't think many people getting the 16E will be doing, then I don't think you're going to notice that much of a difference from the higher end 16s. It's got the performance here to last you the next 3, 4, or even 5 years if you are buying this for the long term. If you are upgrading from the 3rd Gen SE, then you are looking at about a 40% faster performance overall for both the CPU and GPU. And from the 2nd gen, the 16E has a 90% faster CPU and 2 times faster graphics. Now, because this gets the A18, that means it also gets Apple Intelligence, which of course none of the original SEs could get, or the 14, which this design is based off. And Apple is really trying to hype up Apple Intelligence for this. And there are some actually useful features, but there are some kind of weird ones as well that I just don't really see a use for. So if you are wondering if it is worth upgrading just for that, well, I have done a whole review on all of the main features, the good and the bad, which I will link to down below if you want to check that out. The 16E does come with something special though. This has Apple's first ever in-house modem chip for cellular that they're calling the C1. Like the move from Intel to the M series in the Mac and the A series and the iPhone before that, Apple is ditching Qualcomm and they're just taking a shot at it themselves. And there are a couple of benefits to this. First, Apple says that the C1 is the most power efficient modem ever in an iPhone, which should lead to better overall battery life when using the data network. And second, the chip can be more tightly integrated with iOS. For example, if an iPhone with the C1 encounters congested data networks, the phone's processor can signal to the modem which traffic is the most time sensitive and put that ahead of any other data transfers. It's behind the scenes stuff that just makes the phone feel more responsive. There's a cost benefit to making your own chip as well. Yeah, I'm sure that it cost quite a lot to develop it in the first place, but Apple isn't going to need to buy any modems from anyone else if they have their own, which should work out better in the long term. I expect that we'll see the C1 crop up in the main line of iPhones soon. They're just probably guinea pigging it here in the 16E with a smaller user base to iron out any potential problems. Then eventually it'll be merged with the A chip to keep everything together. So let's talk camera. Yes, camera, as there is just a single rear camera here on the 16E. There is no ultra-wide, no telephoto. In fact, as you move up the 16 line, you get an extra camera each time, which visually makes it quite easy to read exactly what you're getting, and it keeps them differentiated. But this is a 2-in-1 camera system. The 16E has a 48 megapixel fusion camera, meaning you do get a 2x digital crop, so you can at least get a little bit closer to your subject. But it's not the same camera that you'll find in the 16. It has a smaller sensor, which means low light performance isn't quite as good. It does have night mode though, if you can keep your hand steady. It also means a less shallow depth of field, so the natural bokeh blur won't be as strong. But we do get portrait mode with depth control, so you can get that blurry background look for portraits at 1 or 2x. By all means, it's not a bad camera. I've taken some pretty decent shots and videos of it. It does its job. And it does appear to have the same front camera as the 16 at 12 megapixels. But I do think that some people might miss having that second camera because no ultra-wide means no macro mode, although you can get a bit closer to a subject with this camera's smaller sensor, so I have captured some pretty detailed texture shots of it, just not as close as I can get with my 16 Pro Max. It'll be interesting to see how mobile lenses work with the 16E, as those might help bridge the gap and cover those missing focal lengths for those that need them. So let me know if you want to see a video testing that out. Some other things to note, this has the previous version of Photographic Styles. It doesn't get the all new looks with the control pad customization. Despite having the same A18 chip, it feels like that might have been left out on purpose to tempt people up to the 16. And Quick Take, where you hold the shutter down to start taking a video, is the older version as well. So it will only shoot in a 3:4 aspect ratio, and it doesn't support 4K 60 in HDR when using Quick Take. But it is possible that both of those features are limited by the 4-core GPU on this version of the A18. We do get visual intelligence though for asking Google or ChatGPT questions from the camera. It can't be launched from the camera control because this phone doesn't have it, but there is now a shortcut in the control center which you can tap, or you can assign it to the action button to quickly open it up. For wired charging, I did mention that we have a USB-C port, but yes, this is still a USB 2 speed for data transfers, so of course that does align with the base 16. But then for wireless, there are no MagSafe magnets in the back of this phone, so you can't put a MagSafe battery on the back for a top-up. It has wireless charging, but it's the older 7.5 watt Qi spec. Now, there's likely a couple of reasons for this. One is to differentiate from the 16. It gives you another reason to maybe just spend a little bit more and just get the 16. But also, those magnets take up space. So by taking them out, Apple has managed to fit an even bigger battery than was in the original iPhone 14. In fact, it's even bigger than the iPhone 16 at 4,000 mAh, as confirmed by some teardowns. Which, along with the efficiency of the A18 and the new C1 chip, this gives the 16E even more battery than the base 16, and you do notice it. You get around 26 hours of video playback versus 22 on the 16, or just 15 hours on the 3rd Gen SE. So there are pros and cons. I mean, I was kind of surprised at the lack of MagSafe when they announced it. I say that as someone that is, really into that whole MagSafe ecosystem. It just seems like such a missed opportunity to sell a bunch of MagSafe accessories to a whole new customer base that is probably coming from the iPhone SE. But fear not, hope is not completely lost. You can sort of get MagSafe by adding a MagSafe case. So you can at least add a MagSafe wallet or use a stand, but you're always going to be stuck with that slower 7.5 watt wireless charging, which just feels kind of ancient now in 2025, kind of like that 60 Hz display. If you look at where the 16E falls in the lineup, then you can see exactly why it starts at 600 quid. They've taken out a camera, they've removed MagSafe, left it with 7.5 watt wireless charging, and put it all in a 2-year-old black and white design to cut some costs. Because if you want any of those cut features, well, your only option is to step up and spend another 200 and get the iPhone 16. Then if you want a third camera with the telephoto, or a faster C port, or a buttery smooth 120 Hz display, well, now you're looking at spending another 200 to get a 16 Pro. Apple has very carefully laid out these stepping stones of features to just tempt you to spend a little bit more. But here's the thing, there is an iPhone with 2 cameras, a newer design with the dynamic island, MagSafe with Qi 2, the same action button, same base storage, and a brighter display. You can still get a new, not even used, iPhone 15 for pretty much the same price as the 16E. The only thing that you're really going to be missing out on is the bigger battery and Apple Intelligence, which, to be honest, I think it still needs a bit more time in the oven. It's not even available worldwide yet, and there are still features that are still yet to launch. I've got to say, I do love the simplicity of the 16E. The design is gorgeous, and I do get what they're trying to do with it, how they're trying to place it in the lineup. Trying to tempt anyone with an older iPhone like an SE or 12 or 13 to upgrade. But as long as there are still iPhone 15s out there, that just looks like a better buy to me. I mean, I don't know, what do you think? Let me know down in the comments. If it started at $499, 100 quid cheaper, I think it would be a lot more appealing. Right now, we're at the 6-month midpoint before the iPhone 17, and I'm wondering if by calling this the 16E, that signals that we might be getting like a refresh on a more yearly basis, maybe with like updated internals every March, in like the middle of each flagship release. But I guess we'll have to wait and see. Check out my long-term review of the iPhone 16 Pro Max if you want to see my thoughts on that. Now I've had some more time with it, I'll link to it below. And for a true budget phone, check out my review of the $200 CMF phone by Nothing. I was genuinely really impressed by it. If this video helped you out, then you can help me out by leaving a like, let me know your questions down in the comments, and subscribe and hit the bell to see more tech videos from me. And yes, my hair is a mess, I am getting it cut tomorrow. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.